good morning. So, Leo, let's start with you. What are the main challenges that you see for startups in this domain?
I think that the biggest challenges is to combine market knowledge with business sense. Because the space industry in the private sector is so new, we find a lot of startups that come from the military, defense, the intelligence industries, but they don't know.
Okay. We have also Yair Levy from Brain Space. Good story. Thank you. Bakasha, Leo.
Yeah, so I think the combination between a product mindset and business thinking is the most critical, because we all know how Israel is very good in scaling startups and technologies. In space, you have to go through regulation to understand your technology limits, and not necessarily to, reach the milestone as much as you have to understand your domain. So I think that's the biggest challenge, the combination between knowing the domain and scaling as a startup mindset.
Okay, Mr. Steinberger, thank you for being with us today. How do you choose in which companies to invest in? Considering space, of course.
It's a big challenge, and that's why I think it's very important on one hand that you team up with someone like Lior and his team of Type 5, who know the space tech industry inside out, who have an ecosystem, who have access to amazing startups, who know which companies have received grants and who know the space very well, literally speaking. I think that's number one, and number two is to make sure that as an investor you are diversified, not that you choose, you put all your eggs in one basket, but you try to invest in maybe 10 or at least 20 companies, which sort of reduces the risk a little bit.
Can you see the growth of companies that deals space?
There's definitely a huge trend coming up with the private companies starting to get more and more into space, and I think that's the beginning of a big trend. And look at the audience here, so I think that's the confirmation.
It's full. Mr. Barra, sorry for the question almost. Did you think already who will take the taxes from working out space?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question, because maybe the only thing that is certain in life is taxes, right? So that's the other one, death. But I hope this will change. Think about it. Taxes is the main source of income for governments, and that will change. Think about the forces. Think about the disruption on all other aspects of economy that this is suggesting. So I guess that imposes an opportunity not for just space tech natural companies. That represents a very nice opportunity.
But someone already thought about it. If I will live on Mars, who will take my taxes?
Yeah, so governments are already there in terms of regulation, in terms of taxation, but definitely the forces will change. This is why we should be the front line of it, to be amongst the the policymakers, not just as followers. This is something that will be extremely well discussed, and will change the landscape. This is why we need to build the infrastructure, not just follow.
So there will be taxes. Okay. Yair Levy, please tell us more about your company, Brain Space.
One thing that we saw today, that dealing with the space industry, you need to be ready for last-minute change. But for a young company like us, 10 years ago it was impossible even to dream about what we did. But we make it happen due to the ecosystem change. And the conventional flight that allows us to put a headset in the sky, and not in the sky, above the sky, and actually open the opportunity to have an neural wellness monitoring space. When you consider that astronauts today are being monitored for every tissue. It's either the heart rate, density of the bones, every aspect is being measured, but eventually there is one tissue which is not measured and not being monitored. And this is for long-term travel, this is the most important tissue that we need. We need the astronaut to perform and to have a very well-being, wellness. And we put forward a solution that can actually act and operate in space. And that was amazing opportunity.
Lior, Herman, maybe the big question, why taking such risk, such adventures when the profit is unknown?
I think that it's actually an easy question. And I'll give you a quote from Stephen Quest, one of the advocates of the US Space Force. He told the American government 3 years ago that every national defense is fundamentally economic. And by saying that statement, he kind of gave a hint on what is the strategy behind what Elon Musk has been doing. Because everybody thinks that Elon Musk is some genius billionaire who wants to spend his money on going to Mars. The fact is that he's building the railroads for the space economy based on the fact that the US government decided to create a private space sector to provide the bridge for the defense industry.
By the way, when you see the criticism about his things, the things he does, what do you think about it?
I think that's what comes with every great success, That's what counts.
Mr. Steinberger, the same questions about the risk of going to this unknown area.
Well, if people wouldn't take risks, we wouldn't be here. I think it's super important to take risks, but to try and calculate the risks as good as possible. On the other side, as we've seen, Lior mentioned Elon Musk. I mean, he's, I think, the biggest risk taker I've ever seen, and the risk does pay off, and it helps the greater good. I think it's important to take risks, but make sure that you take them as calculated as possible.
Eli, Mr. Barda, your team works closely with startups from their establishment. How do you choose them, and what is the success rate?
So I think first of all, as it relates to space, I think that again we are at the very early beginning. I've been personally involved, not as an advisor, but also as a part of the founding team of companies in this space for the last 2 decades. So I think we understand what are the ingredients. I think that in terms of native space technology companies, we are at the very early beginning. I mean, I compare it to cybersecurity and fintech, where we started with 10, maybe 20 companies, but our goal should be to have 500, 600 companies working together, by the way, as you said, in de-risking and collaborating, because this is a heavy lifting.
And what you can suggest for a new company looking for an investor?
Yeah, so I think that just taking risks, such as Elon Musk, we have to have the right vision, something that is significant, because this space is unique in terms that the investors are willing to take greater risk in terms of greater horizon. I think we should build the right models and right vehicles. The other one is to try and build a sustainable business model that would be, we talk about it here, dual use, dual purpose, things that can be used on Earth and can be leveraged in space. So this is something you need to build a compelling story that will enable to cross that bridge and make it a sustainable business.
Lior, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say exactly that the dual usage is in the heart of understanding the space that can, unsolving the riddle of space. We saw, for example, a company that worked with the defense industry to provide a communication for submarine. And the same solution, if you implement it as a cybersecurity protection for autonomous vehicles, you can protect them from hijacking their data and take them off of course. So when you realize that space technology will eventually allow us to have autonomous vehicles, all of a sudden it's not a moonshot, it's right here. And that's the fundamentals of our thinking.
Leo, Yair, Ken, it is very known at the startup nation of Israel. Is it more difficult to be a space tech startup?
Well, space brings a lot of challenges, and but on the other hand, when you have challenges in new environments, you get new unmet needs, and here comes the opportunities. But the key factor for the success is knowledge sharing and being part of the Rakia mission. I know that Eran will talk about it, was a key success factor for our mission because the ability to share knowledge and to get support from other teams was the fact that we managed to go up and do our job there.
What was so important in this Rakia mission, as you see it?
As I said, you're not alone on your way into space. And when you have collaboration and you have knowledge sharing, and when you have a problem, and many problems can occur during this journey and the preparations, you have who to ask and who to lean on in order to solve the problems. This is a key factor.
And how jealous were you?
Sorry?
How jealous were you?
Jealous?
Yes, of course. Didn't you want to be there?
Well, I was so proud that part of us,
Okay.
our team, went up to space with Eitan.
That's a good answer.
And the good collaboration was amazing.
I met, I think, 10 years ago, Sir Richard Bernson, and asked him to take me to space. He said, okay, but I think he didn't remember this interview. Unfortunately, yes, Mr. Steinberger, how can you explain this amazing growth in the space industry from nothing to how much? $1 billion market. Really fast.
Well, I mean, the groundwork.
Maybe it's a bubble, you know.
I mean, the groundwork has been laid by state-owned enterprises like NASA, etc. And I think today we're coming to a point where you see more and more private sector taking over, and that's where a lot of money is flowing in, and therefore the technology and the development is growing exponentially. And I think this is a perfect way of transition from government to the private sector, and that will help to propel further the exponential growth that we are seeing now already.
Eli, can you talk about the future, about the money that will get to this industry? How do you see it?
Well, I think that's these are the best examples because it's now emerging. I think that we all still need to take another leap of faith that this is going to happen and that we will be able, to create real business models. I compare to development of life science companies. If you develop a cure for cancer, okay, that could be a long run, but one is unfortunately is sure that you have a market, and in this space you bet not only on the time that it will take you, but whether there will be a business eventually. I think that the challenge here is to find the right investors, long-term investors. I think that we need more entrepreneurs to chime in and join this ride. I look around, the ecosystem is growing, and this is, it's fascinating. It's really exciting. So I think that the challenge here is to find the right partners. Collaboration is something that is a must, because this is, again, heavy lifting. It's not for a single company to to carry it, by itself. But I think we have the right direction and the right partners, and I think this is a community that will, it's more than, it has a purpose, and purpose is a...
And it's just not just science fiction, it really going on.
No, it is real. I mean, it's science fiction, but it's real.
Lior Herman, more about the thing that Type 5 is doing and the position of Israel in this market.
I think that Israel has the best position for this market because we have a mature startup nation industry, well established and well known in the world. And we also we're one of the most, few countries in the world that able to launch its own satellites, its own equipment into space. So if you take in these two assets and combine them together, the mindset of startups and the government experience, you can create a very fast, thriving ecosystem that can utilize space both in digital assets and also in hardware. And you see companies like Ramon Space developing storage and data centers for space, and that's the perfect example how something that went to protect Israel in intelligence now can be deployed to Elon Musk Starlink. So I think we are in the perfect spot to launch this industry here.
So your last words in this panel will start with you about the future. When do you think people will really live in space? And when I will have the opportunity to go and buy a ticket without paying $55 million and go out of space, please. Yeah.
I can say that first, look outside. Sometimes it's easier to go out of space than to reach from Petah Tikva to here. But I think that we're in an amazing age that dreams are coming true and in fast forward. And well, I believe that those are the foundation. And once enough capital will get into the market, there are a lot of dreamers out there that are willing to go out and fulfill their dreams.
Mrs. Steinberger.
I can only share that. I mean, if you look at the video which has been shown at the beginning, I mean, it gives you goosebumps to see, when they were landing on the moon. And if you don't get excited by this, then I don't know what will. So I would be the first, if I could, to join one of those missions, and I would love to go to space and see our Earth from there. But I mean, generally speaking, space tech investments, I think, is a super exciting area to be in, and it's something that we need to do also for our kids, because I would love to see where we are in 20 years. So very exciting space. Mr. Berda.
So the way I see it, I mean, the purpose of what we're doing here is to convince that this is real. I mean, I'm talking about that leap of faith, and I think that if we will, it will happen. I think that we're investing in our pension funds, 20, 30, 40 years into the future, but this is something that can be real within 10, 15 years, at least to a certain extent. I think that we should really open a fund, which is the next frontier, because this is the future, and it's demonstrated, right? We started with unmanned missions, but it's already there. And some of those ideas will be presented here, which demonstrate that this is not just
Lior, please.
I think that if we're looking at the past decade that was dedicated for reducing the launch costs and making this private space viable, I think that the next decade and where we should look now is what I call the chain of logistics, and enabling all the technologies line up in order for us to dream about what's coming next. And next 10 years are all going to be about enabling that.
So it's really nearby.
It's
the next few years.
Around the corner, exactly.
Okay, so thank you very much. It was really nice to make a panel without politicians or politics. Very enlightening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I wish to thank our friends here on stage. As I said, it was really enlightening. Thank you, and please welcome now Mrs.